Hello, everybody. Welcome to our latest webinar on security incidents on the ServiceNow platform. Today, we'll start with a brief introduction, talk a little bit about who Kloves Inc. is, I'll introduce our speaker, and then I'll switch it over to him, and we'll follow up with questions at the end. At the bottom of your panel, you should see a tab that says questions where you'll be able to type in your questions. Everyone is muted right now, and I will read the questions out loud so everyone can understand what was being asked and what is being answered. A little bit about Kloves Inc. We have been a ServiceNow customer since 2011. We're based in Santa Clara, but we have people all over the United States and Australia. We are a full ServiceNow shop, and we have over 100 customers executing global projects. These are just some of the services that we have done recently. We are currently looking for ServiceNow implementation specialists in the USA and Australia. You can find out more about these open positions on our new website under the Company Careers tab. Today, Christian Kim, one of our senior ServiceNow technical consultants, will be demonstrating ServiceNow security incidents. He has over 11 years of experience in IT and over 4 years of experience on the ServiceNow platform. He is a certified ServiceNow system administrator and has experience implementing, designing, managing, and project planning. I will now be handing over the presentation to Christian.
So thank you, Laura, for the wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. This is Christian from Kloves. Today, I'll be leading the webinar and demo around security incident response management, which includes security incident response and vulnerability management. I'll start briefly by discussing each component of security incident response management. Then we'll take an in-depth look on how one of our clients intends on using the security management suite to replace one of their homegrown applications as they prepare the upgrade to Geneva. All right, and then afterwards, we'll roll into a demo using one of my development instances. Then we can end with Q&A, so if you have any questions, as Laura has mentioned, feel free to type them in the chat box, and I'll answer them at the end of the webinar. One ask, if you don't mind, is that after this point, I'll simply refer to security incident response as SIR, abbreviated as SIR, as you can see here. So moving on, simply put, SIR is a response platform for the security incident response incident response teams to test and enact response plans in the event of suspicious security activity or an actual security breach. As noted here, SIR uses SP800 61R2 as a foundational best practice and leverages the ServiceNow platform to enable collaboration amongst the response team. SIR enables investigations around network and non-network related activities such as IP theft, criminal activities, as well as providing a request capability for request automation between IT and end users and their security teams. So it's essentially a beefed up incident module centric on security with all the features and benefits such as creating a security request or incident from the service catalog. So right off the bat, one of the benefits of using SIR with ServiceNow is having a single system of record. With how robust ServiceNow is, we Kloves can help streamline and automate what was once manual and labor-intensive processes. I found an interesting statistic from a research group which states a third of all organizations spends at least half of all incident response time on manual processes, leading to inefficiencies and delays. So that means roughly 33% of all organizations are losing productivity, which essentially equates to revenue loss. So if you can really automate it, I'm really for all. I'm all for it. I read of a brilliant story recently where a workplace discovered that one of their former employees somehow, some way, figured out how to automate any task that required more than 90 seconds of his time. So that means like if he had to go make coffee, he'd write a script and execute, and he hacked into the machine and made his coffee. So it's just fascinating, and it's kind of related to ServiceNow. Anyways, um, with SIR, as I mentioned earlier, you can create security incidents, security requests, track incident trends, and more with all the same look and feel of ServiceNow. Moving on, the next include component of the suite is the vulnerability response. We won't go too far in depth with this topic since our main focus with this client will be around SIR. But I want to discuss briefly because this may be a phase 2 implementation, and they really go hand in hand with one another. So vulnerability management integrates with the CMDB with the National Vulnerability Management Database. And with third-party solutions, it integrates like with Qualys or Splunk in order to generate a set of actionable reports of vulnerable assets in your environment. So incident response tasks, change requests, or problem tickets can easily be opened from vulnerabilities to allow security teams to perform further investigation or remediation. As I said, it works hand in hand with ServiceNow. So in relation with SIR, vulnerability response supplements SIRs with threats up front that may be a precursor to broader breaches. With IT change management, you can plan and prioritize remediation efforts. And lastly, you can leverage the orchestration piece of ServiceNow to perform zero-touch remediation. Again, this kind of goes back to the automation. You see how they're related. Okay, so moving on, I'll talk briefly a history of our client. They are a financial technology company with locations spanning nationwide. In the early days, the company deployed ServiceNow Express because of its small size. And over time, as the company grew, so was the usage of ServiceNow. And that's kind of where the issues started to arise. Since Express didn't include any workflows, for example, approvals had to be configured using approval rules. Even so much a custom homebrewed application was built for their cybersecurity division. And this application leverages several inbound rules that feed from their monitoring tools into ServiceNow. And because, unfortunately, there weren't any SMEs administering their instance, anything and everything, as you see here, I underlined this, became an incident. So even any kind of request, any kind of issue, any kind of alert, they all came in, and rather than route to appropriate tables, they became incidents. So there's quite a bit of mess that's there. So now you'll see the relevance of SIR and the vulnerability management as this company matures. They've actually switched from Express to a full-blown enterprise suite, and so now they've got the ability to create workflows, and they're essentially ready to move into Geneva and reap all the great benefits. So moving on, I just want to show you a few screenshots that I pulled from their instance. You can see that they have a module that's built out for their cybersecurity. They built a couple of items within their service catalog to request elevated access and even self-elevation. And on the right side, as I have shown you, this is a list within their incidents that shows all of their cybersecurity issues and tickets. Overall, though, I have to say, even though every record is an incident, excuse me, it's still impressive to see an application built like this. I've always given kudos to those that can build something out of nothing, and at the time there wasn't a cybersecurity or some kind of security application with with Express and even so with their version that they were on. So hats off to them. As I mentioned, they're ready now to move into Geneva. They're actually a couple of versions behind. And so we've been brought in to help clean up some of the manual configured modules and applications, obviously sort out the everything as an incident ordeal, and implement the security incident response management suite. Okay, now we'll move on to the demo in Geneva. Let me bring up my instance here. Okay. So you'll see that once the plugin has been enabled, you'll find the security incident module along the application picker here. I'll show you how to quickly create a security incident using the form itself, and then you create a security incident within the service catalog. And there's quite a bit of bundled items that come with the service catalog. So as I mentioned, we'll first start with security incident using the form. It's a standard layout, similar layout to the incident form. Very simple information here. So we can input information here. Let's just say we'll pick this user. We'll set a category as spear phishing. Actually increase the size of my screen. And let's just say there's a scam email activity. I'm not quite sure what the affected CI is quite yet, but let's just say I have suspicious email. And you'll see with the context search features that came with, I believe, Fuji, as soon as you start typing in text in the short description, any results within the knowledge base will start populating in the context window below here. Substate, this is actually a new field that you wouldn't see anywhere else, but this applies just to the security incidents, and this essentially just specifies whether the security incident includes a problem or a change. Let's just skip this for now. And let's just say the contact type is endpoint security. Come down a little bit further, there's a couple of tabs that aren't too different to the security incidents, but under the general tab, you can specify an attack an attack vector, and there's some out-of-the-box attack vectors that you can specify during the ticket population. Let's just say there's improper usage for this one. Impact, I'm going to say is high because it's my system. Priority, let's just set that as high as well. I need help. Business units, I've noticed that this has been renamed for Geneva. It's essentially functions the same way as department. So I will specify that I'm in IT. Risk is moderate, severity, I'll leave this as medium. The related records, you can actually create a security incident from a problem, a change request, from an incident. There's a number of different ways to actually to escalate an existing record into a security incident. The next tab is the post-incident review. This is a pretty handy, a pretty nice feature to use after either the incident closure or mediation. You can input the findings using the report, the incident report text box down here, and you can assign some users to actually task them out to conduct the incident review. And then the activities log, pretty standard watch list, work list, work notes list, and additional comments. This is pretty standard, so I'm just going to go ahead and save the form. And I don't know if you caught that, but as I in the header, there was an option to calculate severity. There's one application that's included with the security incident response, and that is to calculate the severity um, of the threat. And again, these are kind of standard out of the box, but you'll see that if you click into one of these, it's kind of essentially similar to how you would configure priority, risk, and urgency. All of those three are related in a sense, and it gets calculated based on your criteria. So very similar in that sense. Okay. And so that was to create the incident directly within the form. I'll show you there's actually an option to create the incidents directly from the service catalog. As I mentioned, there's a number of items that are included in the service catalog. It's actually a separate catalog in itself. But these are items that you can utilize in your portal. These are items that your end users can click into. Rather than, again, go into the form directly, you may just want to port them into the self-service page or a self-service portal. So this is just a quick, I think about 10 or 15 items are included with the software suite. There's policy violation, there's denial of service, which is spear phishing, rogue server. You can request access. This actually for our client, this can get rid of the two items that they created where they can request elevated access or self-elevation, as you can see here. And these are pretty nice forms, just very standard. Specify your location, detailed description, and your priority. This will take in the logged in user. So I'll just say I am testing. Actually, I am requesting for a new access badge. And I'll go ahead and hit submit. And you'll see that there's a notification that populates at the top that says the security incident department has been contacted regarding your request, and then they'll contact you whether they need additional information. So it's pretty nice that ServiceNow bundled this as part of their package, so you don't have to go out and build some more custom service catalog applications. All right, now we'll move on to how to create a security request. One thing I just wanted to point out quickly, to differentiate between incident and request, think of an incident as reporting issues. Say you had a breach, something happened to your network, or you feel like your system's getting hacked. You would go ahead and create an incident. As for a request, think of this as, again, you can request for badge access, or you need some sort of elevated access into a system. Okay. And another point to add to this is that, as I had mentioned, our client is using a number of inbound actions that are sent from their monitoring tools. For the SIR package, we'll have to configure those inbound actions using the event manager. And so using event manager, we can route the tickets correctly, and based on the rule set, we can set that to create an incident based on again, on those type of rules. Okay. Added benefits to the SIR, there's actually a number of included dashboards that are included with SIR. So I'll just show you quickly here. There are BSM maps, there are heat maps, there are donuts that you can see here. And we're actually going to be building a number of different dashboards for our client because they have such a large cybersecurity team. But this just kind of gives you an idea of the capabilities of SIR. We can report the as low as the CIs, and there's actually a BSM map that I can show you based on these reports. Another add-on is that there is a performance analytics piece that ties into SIR. So you'll see you have trending data over time. But I don't believe we're going to be implementing analytics for our client just yet. And there was one other piece that I want to show you. As part of as SIR, there is a knowledge base that you can specify and create for SIR-related topics. I created a few just the other day, but if you go into security incident, you'll see that there's some that are out of the box. So just like your general knowledge, your IT knowledge, or your facilities knowledge, there is a security incident knowledge that can be limited to your internal staff, or you can open these up to more of a general audience. So it's pretty nice that functionality for security incident related articles. Oops. Overall, that's ultimately how our end user, or actually our client, will be using I'm sorry, security incident as they move into Geneva. We actually won't have to port over the application that they built, and we'll be leveraging the SIR package for the client. Let's go back to Q&A quickly. Laura, do you mind opening up the line for any questions up to this point?
Absolutely. If anybody has any questions, they can type them into the box with questions, and I can read them aloud to Christian and to everybody, and he can answer them as we go along. Okay, the first question I have is from Andrew. He'd like to know, can you show the BSM map function?
Sure. Let me get back into that. Where did I see that? All right, while this loads, just under the incidents application, there's a view BSM, and we can zoom in, and you'll see that this is sorted by business service. It's a pretty nice functionality of the BSM, but you can essentially change the layout here. I personally like the radial. And then if you click on, oops, if you click on the business service, right-click I meant, and you went to View Form, it'll open up a new tab, and you'll see that the business service and all related items to that.
He does have a follow-up. He says, so this shows all incidents, security, or other?
This is under the incidents for security.
Ron would like to know, how would you define priority versus severity?
So if I were to define priority, I would classify that as if this security incident came up, which order should it be resolved first, right? Whereas severity has the impact of the overall threat. right? So I mean, it's kind of a fine line in between. But again, if I had to bring this up during a change management, I'd likely base it off of the priority, and then you can make a judgment call between the two. But if it's a high priority, then it's got to be a severe case, right?
Why is this different in incident security when normally priority is calculated based on impact and urgency and not manually set?
Well, sorry. Uh, as you can see, urgency is not used in this module or application. Um, the I want to say the severity is calculated based on, double check here really quick. The severity is calculated by the impact, risk, and priority. Whereas in other cases of ServiceNow, you would have, I believe, priority is not the one that you would normally assign, but it's the urgency and impact that gets calculated. But uh, I have to imagine for security incidents, it's a bit different. I want to say I saw this with change as well.
If there are more questions, I'm going to close down the webinar. Of course, you can always email Christian or myself or Kloves Inc. if you have more questions about security incidents, at which point we would be happy to have a private discussion with you guys to talk a little bit more in depth, to talk about how it could enhance your ServiceNow platform, or if you have it already in place and have any questions about how that it might function, then we'd be more than happy to help you with that. So we will be sending out a recording of this webinar sometime later this week. And if you have any questions, feel free to reply to that email, or if you would like to ask questions before the recording is sent out, you can always email us in advance. So thank you all for attending this webinar. This is part of our monthly webinar series. Please go to our website to find out more information about the next webinar for May. It's coming soon. Thank you, everyone.